Hello. So I want to talk to you about organizing files and folders because when you make a website, all the pages of your website are essentially files. Okay, files that need to be organized into folders because eventually, with a big website, you probably have many pages. Okay, and if you have them just all in one folder, it's going to get kind of messy. So you might want to create folders inside folders, that sort of thing. If you're good at managing your folder system on your computer, that's already a good start. But I noticed that often students, even professors, people in general, sometimes don't manage their files very well, and things are just kind of all over the place. It's kind of like keeping your files organized in like a cabinet, right? If you just, every time you get a document, you just kind of stuff it in your cabinet, everything's going to get pretty messy pretty quickly. But if you have in your cabinet different folders, and in each folder you have them labeled, right? This is my utilities. This is the folder for my car insurance. This is the folder for school, and all your documents for school go into your school folder. All your documents for your car go into the car folder. That sort of thing. Keeping yourself organized is key in computer science. It'll help you a lot. Okay. So, your textbook talks about folders, files, and paths, and makes a pretty good example with our Lounge website that we had. So do go over pages from, I think, 56 to 68. Go through that, read that, and do the exercises. The book explains it really well, so if you do that, you'll get a really good understanding for it. Okay, so I encourage you to do that. Just talking a little bit about how we know where things are. So if you look at something like this, this is what's called a path, okay, a file path. Okay, and a file path tells you where a file exists in a computer system. So for example, here we can see that this file is on drive letter E. It's in a folder called Programs, and in the folder Programs there's another folder called Games. Inside that folder there's another folder called Civ, and inside there, that's where this file exists. You can always tell a file because the file always has a file extension. Okay, so this file, that's where I can find that file on my file system. Okay, if you want to look in Windows, so here I actually have my Lounge example. Now I'm explaining on Windows. For Mac users, it's kind of similar. If you go into your Finder, right? Finder is what you use to browse your file system on a Mac. It's kind of similar in its structure. Okay, if you don't get this kind of stuff, or Windows seems really alien to you, you might want to go onto Google and try to find. I think I googled understanding Mac file system, something like that. And you might get some videos that could be useful to help you organize your files. Okay, so these files that I have here, this Lounge, where does this actually exist? Where are these stored on the computer? And if you actually look up here, you can actually see the file path. This is in a folder called This PC, and in this folder there's another folder called the Desktop, and in the folder Desktop there's a folder called Lounge. Okay. Now, this PC is a bit complicated. It actually exists on the C drive. C drive, it then goes into like your user folder, and from there, that's just kind of like a shortcut naming. I won't get into the details for that. Let's just take for granted that this thing actually exists like this. Okay, so the thing is, if I start, let's imagine that I plan to expand my website. So this Lounge is my home page. And let's say from my home page, I can get to some other pages that are about my website. So for example, directions, and maybe history, things like that, different pages like that. So I imagine having a number of pages. So to keep that organized, let's create a new folder, and let's call this About. Okay, so any web page that is kind of about my website, so directions, history, that sort of thing, they're actually going to go in there. Okay, and let's say I plan on having a whole bunch of different pages for drinks, right? Elixirs, then I'm going to have coffees and teas and whatnot. So a whole bunch of different pages. So let's go set that up as well too. So I'm going to make a folder called drinks. Okay, and all the pages regarding drinks are going to go in there. So drinks about tea, drinks about elixirs, alcohol, whatever. Okay, so I have that set up. And the thing is, now when I open this, let's open with Firefox. Okay, so there's my web page. Downsize that a bit. Now, the problem is when I click on elixirs, it doesn't find it. The reason for that is, right now, Lounge is looking for elixir.html. It says, elixir.html, where are you? I can't see you, right? And it's nowhere to be found. It can't be found. In fact, Lounge actually needs to go into the drinks folder to find the Elixir page. Okay, so that's where the path comes into play and is important, right? You need to tell Lounge that not only is the file called Elixir, but I also have to tell it that it's located in the drinks folder. Okay, more on that in a second. Okay. So if this was a path, I would have to do something like /drinks/elixir.html, right? And when we talk about paths, we talk about absolute and relative paths. Absolute is starting from the very beginning, right? Like this. And if I were to tell my Lounge page, let's say I'm on my Lounge page, and I said, okay, where is elixir.html? And if I were to specify an absolute path, I would say, okay, go to this PC, then inside there you'll find the desktop folder, then inside there you'll find the Lounge folder, and inside there you'll find the drinks folder, and inside the drinks folder you'll find elixir.html. So that's the absolute path. It always starts from the very beginning. Okay. Instead, a relative path starts from your starting point, where you currently are. Okay, so if I am currently here, exactly this Lounge page right here, if I'm right here, that Elixir page relative to this page is just inside drinks, right? I don't have to start at the very beginning. I don't have to start from this PC. I just start from where I am at the moment. Okay, and from where I am at the moment, all I need to do is specify go into drinks, and there you'll find Elixir. Okay, so just to cap off, an absolute path always starts from the beginning, right? And a relative path starts from your current position at the moment, okay, which I'm in the Lounge folder. That's my current position. So, okay. The advantage of using relative paths is that they'll never change. So if my relative path is drinks folder and then Elixir, let's say I take this Lounge folder and I move it. Okay, so I copy it and let's move it to a different place like documents. Okay, so here I'm in documents. If I use the relative path, you can see my relative path has actually changed now. My relative path is OneDrive, Documents, Lounge. Before it was this PC, desktop, Lounge. Okay, so I would have to change all of this if I was using absolute paths. Using a relative path, that never changes. The relative path is still just go into drinks, and there you'll find Elixir. Okay, so when we specify where a file is, we usually specify relative paths. Okay. Now you might be asking, what does this .. mean? .. means you're going up one level. So let me show you what I mean. Let's say I'm in the Elixir, and I'm in this location right here. Right? I'm in the drinks folder, and elixir.html is looking for one of the images. Where's the image? Right? It can't find it. There's no images here. I can't find it. So what it needs to do is it needs to go up one level. So from the drinks folder, it needs to go back to the lounge folder. Okay, so how do I tell it to go back? That's what that dot dot slash is. Right? Dot dot slash right there. Dot dot slash says, okay, go back one folder level, and there you can look for your file. Okay, so what this means is go back one level, and in this case, go into the images folder, and in the images folder, you'll find a picture of some nude dude. Okay, so that's a quick explanation about folders, files, where to find them, and the path leading to them. Okay, in Windows, it's always easy to see where a path is, because it just says it up there. I think Mac might be a little bit different, so it might be a bit harder to find your folder paths. And conveniently, Komodo also shows your path as well too. Let me just show you that. So here we have Komodo again, and at the top here you can conveniently see there is the path. And lounge.html, this is where it was stored. In the C folder, users, kdong, desktop, lounge. And that's where it is. Okay. And this was just before I moved it. Okay, so if you do recall, this was desktop and lounge. All of this back here was represented by my PC. Okay, or my computer, I don't remember what it was. But you can see that it was desktop lounge, and that's this version. And a problem that people often run into is that they'll start opening this lounge, okay? And they open it and they say, well, I made a bunch of changes. How come they don't show up? The problem is you made changes on this one here, which is on the desktop lounge, and you're trying to open this one, which is in documents lounge. And those are two different lounge files. This lounge.html is on the desktop. This lounge.html is in documents. Okay, so be careful. If you're ever running into problems where you're like, I made changes, but I don't see any of the changes, first thing you should do, check the path. Okay, and in case, close this one and drop the one that you want in here. And now I can see that this one is the one that's in documents. Okay, so check your paths. Make sure you are working on the one that you want, and that's the one that corresponds to the path. Okay, so very important to know where your files are, know how to read a path of a file, and know how to navigate around it.